What's up guys, Roman from RNS Entertainment, and in this character spotlight video I'm going to be going over Prince Oberyn Nymeros Martell, the Red Viper of Dorne. Oberyn Martell is the younger brother of Prince Oberyn Martell, the head of their house, the Prince of Dorne and the Lord of Sunspear. Their house, the Martells, rule over the Kingdom of Dorne, one of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, from Sunspear, the capital, in the lower southeast area. The Kingdom of Dorne is a huge peninsula which is located in the southernmost part of Westeros. Isolated from the other 7 kingdoms geographically and culturally, and influenced by many foreign cultures, the Dornish people have a very different way of life than most of Westeros. No one exemplifies these differences more than Oberyn Martell, flying in the face of almost every tradition of the 7 kingdoms. The witty, bisexual, dangerous Oberyn Martell has spent his life traveling the globe, expanding his horizons, learning as much as he possibly could, and honing his skills in battle. When Oberyn was a child, he was fostered at Sandstone, located in the western, deserted area of Dorne. When he was 16 years old, Oberyn was found in bed with the paramour of Lord Edgar Wood, who challenged him to a duel. Due to Oberyn's high birth, the duel was not a death match, it was only to first blood. Both men took cuts, but Lord Edgar's cut ended up festering and taking his life. Ever since, Oberyn has been known as the Red Viper for his tendency to use poisoned weapons in battle. Afterward, Oberyn was sent out of Dorne to Old Town in the Reach, and then to Lys and the continent of Essos, in temporary exile, though they didn't really call it exile, for them to kind of make peace with the house of the lord that Oberyn killed. Because of this, Quentyn Martell was also sent as a ward to House Wood. Oberyn then spends a huge portion of his life traveling in the Free Cities, learning about poisons and perhaps even dark magic. He's even studied at the Citadel, going as far as to have forged 6 links of a maester's chain before he got bored and quit. Oberyn also spent time fighting in the Disputed Lands, a region of constant war that's been contested between the free cities of Myr, Tyrosh, and Lys for 3 centuries. These battles mainly involve companies of sellswords, such as the Second Sons, who Oberyn rode with for a time before forming his own company of mercenaries. Having spent so much time traveling the world, experiencing new things, this has left Oberyn in a unique situation. Other than being incredibly dangerous, Oberyn has a very different view of sexuality, the world, having children, namely bastard children, and a lot of other things like general customs, general norms. Oberyn doesn't really follow the trend. Notably, one of the only bisexual characters in the series, Oberyn in the books was only rumored to be bisexual, but in the show we definitely got full-on confirmations of that. He explains his philosophy. He doesn't really take preference. He enjoys all that the gods create, and that includes battle as well as sex with anybody he wants to have sex with. Jaime Lannister once said of Oberyn, "The man's infamous, and not just for poisoning his sword. He has more bastards than Robert Baratheon and beds with boys as well." Far from a deadbeat dad, however, Oberyn takes great care of his 8 bastard daughters, commonly referred to as the Sand Snakes. In the region of Dorne, bastards' surnames are Sand because of the desert region. It just makes sense. All of the different areas of Westeros have different bastard names, such as Jon Snow from the north, Brynden Rivers from the Riverlands, Edric Storm from the Stormlands, etc. So Oberyn actually looks after his bastard daughters. He trains them to fight, he takes an active part in their life, and raises them all up as his own, just like any other child. In the television series, Oberyn even has a conversation with Cersei about this, where he brings up that Dorne doesn't look at bastards the same way the rest of the 7 kingdoms do. On to one of the most important things about Oberyn, and the driving force behind his actions for his entire appearance on the TV series, and most of his appearance in the book series as well. His eternal hatred and feud with the Lannisters. To understand this, you have to understand Oberyn's relationship with his sister Elia of Dorne, and a little bit of the history of Westeros that ended up involving her. Oberyn and Elia were always close. Not like Jaime and Cersei Lannister close, but in a normal brother and sister way close. When they were children, they were brought to King's Landing to arrange a marriage pact between one of them and either Jaime or Cersei Lannister. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, they arrived shortly after Joanna, the wife of Tywin Lannister, had died giving birth to Tyrion. Tywin, in a sour mood and attempting to wrench some level of profit from the situation, offered them Tyrion instead, which the Dornish lords viewed as an insult. During this visit, Oberyn witnessed how horrible Cersei was to baby Tyrion, grabbing his penis and wrenching it and calling him a monster. And I'd like to go ahead and mention that Pedro Pascal in the Game of Thrones TV show portrayed Oberyn amazingly. The conversation when him and Tyrion went over their shared past without Tyrion even knowing that Oberyn had seen him before. And Oberyn defended the fact that though he looked a little different than most children, he was still just a child. He was just a person. After this, Elia was married off to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, which definitely upset Tywin even more after having planned to marry Cersei to Rhaegar. Later, at the tournament at Harrenhal, which Oberyn himself took part in, Rhaegar Targaryen awarded the Queen of Love and Beauty title to Lyanna Stark after winning the tournament, passing over his wife Elia. 1 year later, Rhaegar Targaryen either runs away together with Lyanna Stark or kidnaps her, starting Robert's rebellion and beginning the end of the Targaryen rule over Westeros. After Rhaegar falls to Robert Baratheon in the Battle of the Trident, the Mad King Aerys Targaryen, deep in his paranoia, thinking that Dorne had betrayed Rhaegar, hides Elia away in King's Landing with both of her children as hostages to manipulate the Dornish people if they do betray him. Tywin Lannister, after being neutral in most of the war, shows up at King's Landing and sacks the city with 12,000 of his men. To show his loyalty to Robert Baratheon, he orders his captains to kill the royal children and end the Targaryen line. Just as Jaime Lannister is driving a sword into the Mad King's back to prevent him from burning King's Landing down with wildfire, Gregor Clegane the Mountain and Amory Lorch were scaling the walls of Maegor's Holdfast, which held Elia and her children. They break in and Amory Lorch kills Elia's daughter Rhaenys before Ser Gregor Clegane the Mountain murders Aegon Targaryen, Elia's infant son, in front of her before raping and killing her. After learning this, Oberyn is furious and attempts to raise all of Dorne to back Viserys Targaryen and continue the war. The new hand of the king, Jon Arryn, was able to negotiate a peace, but Oberyn has never forgotten his desire for revenge. Working in secret with his brother Doran Martell for years and years, planning and plotting on ending the reign of King Robert Baratheon and destroying the entire house of Lannister, Oberyn ends up traveling to Braavos to arrange a marriage pact between Viserys Targaryen and Elia Martell, the eldest daughter of Doran. This leads us to the events of Season 4 of Game of Thrones and Prince Oberyn's appearance in the books. Oberyn arrives in King's Landing to claim the seat on the small council offered to his brother Prince Doran Martell, and to begin his search for vengeance. After serving as one of the judges in Tyrion's trial after he's accused of murdering Joffrey, Oberyn agrees to be his champion in a trial by combat against Ser Gregor Clegane, the Mountain. The fight between Oberyn and the Mountain is legendary. Even in the books, it is probably the best single combat scene described in the entire series. In the show, it left such an impact that people posted reaction videos similar to the Red Wedding. Far from the armored, broadsword-wielding, over 7-foot-tall Gregor Clegane, Oberyn decides to fight with light armor of leather and copper, and a spear tipped with poison. Using speed and his great skill with a spear and acrobatics, Oberyn tires out the Mountain, taunting him all the while. Elia Martell, you raped her, you murdered her, you killed her children. Oberyn repeats these words over and over throughout the battle. It almost becomes a chant that increases in ferocity as he gets into his vengeance and wrings a confession out of Gregor Clegane. Oberyn lands a quick succession of blows, ending in a hamstring, crippling Gregor Clegane and knocking him to the ground. Determined to get a public confession and legitimize his hunt against the Lannisters in the future, Oberyn circles around the Mountain, demanding him to confess. This is his final mistake, as an injured Gregor Clegane, still massive and incredibly powerful, knocks him off of his feet before knocking his teeth out, knocking his eyes out, and basically blowing his fucking head off. It's a little different in the books than it is in the show. In the books, he was wearing a helmet, he gets his teeth knocked out, he gets his eyes knocked out, and then he's basically done. In the show, they went even further, eschewing the helmet completely for a giant eye gouge that ends up blowing Oberyn's head almost clean off. The entire front of it is just a mangled mess, and they showed it to us. Oh, it was so hardcore. This was one of the most intense moments of the show. You thought Viserys Targaryen's death looked painful with the molten gold getting poured over his head? Nope, not anymore. This topped it. Prince Oberyn Martell is a fan favorite both in the books and in the show, and for good reason. He's a complete and utter badass. Completely confident in himself and what he wants, Oberyn will do anything to achieve his goals. Despising the thought of being ordinary or mundane, Oberyn has spent his life traveling the world, honing his skills, having the most experience he can, and learning all that he could. In a world where bastard children are treated as almost less than human, Oberyn has taken the time out of his life to personally raise and take care of each of his bastard daughters. And even at a young age, defended an infant Tyrion who was described as a monster for simply being different. Unashamed at using poisons and whatever other means he needs, Oberyn understands what it takes to get the job done. Overall, Oberyn Martell is an amazing character, and Pedro Pascal played him perfectly. Other than slight difference in looks, Oberyn has a very famous widow's peak and longer hair in the books. I love the Hispanic look of the Dornish people. I love that we're going to be shooting in Spain for the Dornish scenes coming up in Season 5. And I love Oberyn's appearance. He's the perfect way to introduce them as a people, as a nation, as a culture. Shit, the people of Dorne were the only nation in the Seven Kingdoms able to actively resist and never fall to the Targaryens in battle. This wraps up my Oberyn character spotlight. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for all things Game of Thrones. I do character spotlights, I do weekly episode review and recaps when the show's airing. If you've got a character you'd like to request a spotlight for, leave it in the comments. I always try to get to requests. Some of the bigger characters like Tyrion Lannister, of course I'm going to do a character spotlight on, but that may take a little more time. I really want to, if I make any of the main characters, I want to take some time and make those spotlights something special. But let me know what you think about this video in the comments. Let me know what you thought about Oberyn in the books and the show. Let me know what you'd like to see in future videos, and take it easy, guys.